He says, Pastor, you got to help me. Because I think I'm going to have to kill somebody. I said, man, no. You don't have to do that. He said, Pastor, you don't understand. I'm from the streets. See, I'm a drug dealer. And this guy broke into my house, stole my money, stole all my stuff, and stole my drugs. And if I don't kill him, then everybody around here gonna think I'm a punk. Now that's some pressure right there. I had prayer with a drug dealer this week. I asked God to save his life. I hugged him and I said, man, do what I tell you to do. Because if you don't, in a month you'll be dead or in jail. That's the kind of stuff I deal with. You ought to have my problems. Anybody want to be pastor for a week? I got a message today. From Acts chapter 12. Verse number 5. We have consecration this week. It was talked about already. We'll be in prayer here at 7 o'clock, Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Prophetess Janet Floyd will be with us. You do not want to miss one night. Come out and anticipate, expect the Lord to do an awesome work in you. Put aside all of your plans, all of what you usually do, and say, you know what? I'm going to come out to the house of God and hear from God on this week. I believe God has set us up for a mighty move. What did I say? I said, I believe God has what? Set us up for a mighty move. I believe it's the prophet Nahum that spoke these words. I believe it was. I believe he said, the burden. He started off by saying, the burden against Nineveh. Usually the prophets would start off saying, the word of the Lord. He called it the burden. Brothers and sisters, today, I don't have a sermon, I have a burden. Let's read 12 and 5. What does it say? Acts chapter 12, verse 5. Peter, therefore, was kept in prison. My subject today is the church and the black man's crisis. The church and the black man's crisis. I had a meeting on this week which affected me deeply. I met with other pastors along with one of the Wayne County commissioners and his staff, and some other concerned citizens. And the subject of the meeting was the plight of young black men in Detroit. We're going to meet on a regular basis to discuss what the churches can actively do to attempt to make a difference in our communities. As I deliver this sermon to you, I stand before you deeply troubled. Are you listening to me? I'm deeply troubled by the state of young black men in our city. The events in my own personal life caused me to take another look at the crisis that grips our community with fresh eyes. Brothers and sisters, we are in serious trouble. And what's even more dangerous is the sense of hopelessness that seems to be in our minds. We have become immune to the news of murders and crimes committed in our communities. We have turned a deaf ear to the statistics of failing schools, crumbling neighborhoods, and rising unemployment. We make excuses for our children who have no initiative, no drive, and no plans for the future. We're so quick to blame others for the problems that we have created for ourselves. You listening to me? When we hear that there are more of our black men in the penal system than there are in college, where is the outrage? When we hear that the unemployment rate among black men is the highest of any group in the nation, where is the outrage? The tendency when we hear these things is to say, well, that's not my problem. I submit to you today, Prayer Chapel Church, it's time for us to make it our problem. We need to shift the paradigm of our thinking and begin to ask ourselves the tough questions that would lead to some obvious answers. Many of the problems in the African American community can be traced to one phenomenon: the absence of the black man. Generally speaking, the black man is absent from his community, his family, and his faith. Children have absent fathers. Women have absent husbands. Sons have no positive role model to pattern themselves by in the home. Daughters have no one to protect their dignity and their virginity. The black woman is left to fend for herself in order to better the lives of her and her children. So many of our black men are left without the dignity of feeling needed. And because they don't feel needed, they pursue a life of vanity, often leading to dead-end jobs with no future. No wonder many of these young men resort to drugs and alcohol. No wonder some even choose to live their lives by illegal activity. Well, what can I do about it, you may ask? I won't pretend that there are easy solutions to the problems that confront our people. I wouldn't begin to know how to bring civic, economical, social, and political forces together to solve this crisis. But I do know that we cannot continue to ignore the one organism that can once again become the instigator of change for our community. The church, ladies and gentlemen, is God's agent of change. Well, you may ask, what can the church do? First, the church must realize that we have a responsibility to help the black man return to his leadership role. Secondly, I believe that before we can begin to involve ourselves in programs and activities, we must understand that everything begins with what is contained in our text. I offer this not as the only step, but the first step that the church must take to help the young black man. Look at our text this morning. The Bible says in Acts chapter 12 and verse number 1 that Herod stretched out his hand and murdered James the apostle. And when he saw that deed pleased the enemies of the church, the Bible says that he imprisoned his colleague, Simon Peter. Y'all gonna go with me? There is something quite significant in this verse that you must see. First, these are all Jewish men. Secondly, this verse sums the crisis of which I speak to you this morning. For generally speaking, the black man is either dead or in prison. A situation that he can only look to himself for blame. Look at verse number 1 again. A Jewish man killed another Jewish man. And then that same Jewish man put another Jewish man in prison. I submit to you today that blacks are killing blacks. And the reason that other blacks are in prison is because of what blacks have done. We need to stop blaming the other race. Would y'all please help me here? We need to stop blaming other folk for our mess ups. We need to stop blaming other racial groups, the Arabs, because they took all of the stores and the gas stations, and blaming the Hispanics because they took all of the jobs, and blaming the white man because he's keeping us down, and y'all ain't gonna help me in here. It's time for us to look at our crisis just like it says in verse 1. What they did to themselves. And just because, and some of y'all sitting here today were saying, well, you know, I'm young and I'm black and I'm a man, but I'm not dead and I'm not in prison. But you got to see the whole picture. I may not be talking about you individually, but look at your people. There are people who you went to school with, who you went to college with, who you grew up with, and you can say right now, they either in jail or they're dead. We have a crisis among us, and we did it to ourselves. Look at verse number 5. Peter is in prison. Everybody say he's in prison. Oh yes, oh yes. He's in prison, just like a lot of our black men are in prison. And I'm not just speaking about just the literal prison. Even though, as I stated to you before, there are so many of our men in prison. And even when they come out, they can't stay out. And they end up going back to prison. But even beyond the literal prison, there's a lot of our young black men who are imprisoned in their minds. They are locked up and disconnected. Everybody say disconnected. When you talk about prison, that's a means of disconnecting them from society. And many of our black men are disconnected. They can't get a legitimate job because they done smoked too much weed, or they got a felony on their record. No legitimate driver's license. I can't hear nobody in here. We have become, young black men have become a subculture. We're not even registered. We don't pay taxes. We don't vote. Not even registering as far as society is concerned. In prison, disconnected. We're disconnected emotionally. Having babies with everything moving, you become disconnected with females. You see them as sex objects instead of trying to find somebody that you can build a life with. I can't get nobody to help me. Excuse me, but this is my burden. I'm heavy this morning when I see that young black men standing around on the corner not doing anything. And these young women need husbands, want to be married, and can't find nobody. Everybody say in prison. Oh yeah, no, they not in Jackson or Iona or in Marquette. Y'all ain't gonna help me in here. But they're in prison in their thinking. They would rather break into your house. They would rather steal your car than to get a job. Where are we at? What is going on? And oh my God, my God, my God. And this is where I'm just going to lose it, because here we are, the church, God's representative in the world. And we stepping over and avoiding and driving by. Y'all ain't gonna help me now. We have no passion, no burning, no yearning to help. Oh my God, look at these. Look, what can I do to help? There must be something that the church can do to help, my God. Y'all remember I told y'all about the city of Detroit trying to hire black people, you know, for the police and the fire, trying to hire the citizens of Detroit. And I told y'all about that, how they, you know, had 3,000 people show up and only 500 were employable, which means they could pass a drug test. And I told y'all about that. But I was talking with a friend of mine who works for an organization called Workforce. And his job is to find jobs for the residents of the city of Detroit. Not for Westland or Warren or Livonia or Southfield, just for people who live in the city. He told me, he said, Jesse, this is unbelievable. I had a job fair. A company came came in, a factory came in. Special incentive to hire people in the city. They don't want nobody else but people in the city. They had 500 positions open. People came down, failed the drug test. They had to take those jobs and give it to people living outside the city. Whose fault is it? I'm not concerned about whose fault is it. All the thing I know is we did it to ourselves. So what can the church do? Well, there's a host of things that we can do. And before I start talking about programs and activities, and you know, somebody suggested the other day, well, why don't all the churches band together and gather these young men up and say, we're going to pay you $15 a day and we're going to clean up various parts of the city. That sounds wonderful. But some of these men so whacked out in their head, they'll look at it and say, $15? I ain't doing all that for $15. The point is that there are things that we can do, but before we start doing those types of things, we're going to have to deal with the mental state of the young black man. And the first thing that we're going to have to do, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to do something that we really don't normally want to do. We're going to have to do what they did in verse number 5. Oh, let's go back to verse number 5 as I get ready to close, because come on, let's face it. We've had a black mayor for what at least 30 some odd years. Since 1973, we've had a black mayor. We've had black city council. We've had a black school board. We got blacks in all positions of authority and power in the city of Detroit, and yet we are yet going downhill. That tells me politics ain't the answer. It done got warm up in here. That tells me that politics is not the answer. We can't get political and can't get all of these wonderful ideas except it first start with Acts chapter 12 and verse number 5. And Peter was in prison. But you are asking me, well, Pastor, what can we do as the church? Read verse 5. What did it say? But prayer, God. Oh, my soul love Jesus today. I'm getting ready to close, my brothers and sisters. But prayer was, without ceasing of the church unto God for because remember who Peter represents. Peter represents the young black man that's in prison. The young black man that's on drugs. The young black man that's disconnected from his family. The young black man that's disconnected from society. He represents the young black man who's in a crisis. And remember, that's your problem too. Because I tell you this, and I'm closing. You want to improve society, you want to improve your neighborhood, you want to improve your community, bring the black man back to his home. What's missing is leadership in the home. And the woman has tried to do it, but she really don't want to do it. The black woman is tired, have to work, gotta be the mama, gotta be the daddy, gotta be the provider. She's tired. She wants some help. She ain't saying, I don't want that man back. No, she's saying, young black man, I don't want to have to leave my race. Excuse me, I sound racial now. I don't want to have to leave my race to go and get somebody that will be my partner in life. I can't get nobody to help me now. And so we need, everybody say young black man. And today I'm taking the 18 to 30. I just want to eat with them and talk with them, you know, and just want to eat and talk, you know. But I don't want to talk after we eat because we'll get sleepy. So we'll eat and talk at the same time. And all young men between 18 and 30, married or single, we're going to dialogue today. And it's on me. The food is on me. Because we got to do something. This is just ludicrous. It is ridiculous what we are doing to ourselves. And it's got to stop. And let me tell you what the answer is. The answer is going to be when the church makes prayer without ceasing. Now, before I get to that, remember what I said. Where is Peter at? Peter is in prison. And they were so concerned about Peter being in prison, they started praying and refused to stop. I wonder, is the church today so concerned about the young black man that we will start making prayer unto God and don't. My God, I'm trying to wake your consciousness up because you're at ease in Zion. You just pray for a little while and say, well, I ain't got nothing else to pray for. What you mean you ain't got nothing else to pray for? I'm sure you know some black men right now that are unemployed, that ain't doing nothing but smoking weed all day, every day. You who have sons, you should never stop praying. I got to pray for my sons. The devil is out to steal my son. Herod is out there. Herod is that no good, a slew-footed, box leg. I hate him. He's out there now lurking, trying to either kill or put your son in prison. I got to pray against Herod, man. I got to pray, God, deliver my son from Herod. Deliver my son from that drug dealer. Deliver my son from... Oh my God. I might be in this by myself, but guess what? I'm going to go to church and I'm going to join in with the rest of the church and we're going to pray for the black man. Now, I know some of y'all thinking right now that you know, he's being chauvinist because we got some black women that's tripping out there. Yeah. But let me tell you something. It starts with the black man. Did you hear me what I said? It starts with the black man because the black man has 3 jobs in the home. He's the priest, he's the provider, and he's the protector. He's the priest because he intercedes to God for his family. He's the provider because he goes out and earns a living to bring bacon home to his family. And he is the protector. He protects his children. He protects his daughter. He protects his daughter's dignity. He protects his daughter's virginity. He protects his wife. He protects... And when you are missing that, when that's not there, then she's got to fend for herself. And that son has no one to look up to say, how do I be a man? That's why he starts taking on feminine qualities. Because he being like his mama. Oh, child. Y'all ain't saying nothing. He ain't got nobody to take him by his neck and say, I don't want you to see you in your mama's shoes no more. Do you hear me? You are not a girl, you are a boy. And you don't play with dolls. You don't play with Barbie. Y'all ain't gonna help me. Get you a Tonka truck. Get you a race car set. He need a man in the house. He need a man. Got these deadbeat fathers that's being so selfish, and it's all about you. Let me tell you something. You the one laid down with her. You the one gave her a baby. It's time for you to step up to the plate, black man. Get you a job. Provide for your children. I'm preaching and nobody know it. I'm preaching up in here. And that's why your daughters, black man, your daughters will let any Joe, Dick, Harry, Jamal, y'all ain't gonna help me, Junebug, nappy head, don't even comb his hair, stank, haven't even bathed in 2 days, and your little girl don't know any better, don't have no self-respect, don't have no dignity, letting that Negro put his hands all over your daughter. My God, some ought to wake up in us. We ought to wake up and say no more. No, no more. It's time for us to pray for the black man. Am I right about it? And let me tell you something. Let me tell you. For a long time, and I'm getting ready to close. For a long time, the church has either been too carnal or all spiritual. You can't be too carnal, which means you got your mind on worldly things and sinful things. But you can't be too spiritual either. Because you can be so heavenly minded that you know earthly good. And I'm looking at these young folks looking at me now. And they listening to me because I'm talking where they're at. You hear what I'm saying? Because these kids, these children need a man in the house that's going to tell you to get off the phone. You've been on the phone too long. Who you talking to? What his name is. And see, and a good man will tell his daughter, don't let no man come by the house and blow the horn and you go out. Tell that Negro, get out of that car. Come knock on my door. Treat me with some respect. Open the door for me. Open the car door for me. And nigga, pay for my meal too. But you need a daddy. Tell somebody you need a daddy. You need a daddy. And you need a father in the home to tell the son those things. Don't go over trying to date nobody and you don't treat her with some respect. Did you hear me what I said? Did you? Now I know for some of us, for a whole lot of us in here, it's too late because our children are grown. Okay, it's too late. But you know what? You got some grandchildren. It's time for us to open up our mouths. We're going to have to help our grandchildren. Because the cycle's got to stop. This cycle of getting pregnant at 15, having babies at 16. The devil is a liar. Right, young black man? You ain't got no business having sex with no woman, and you ain't got a job. Did you hear me what I said? Oh, I'm getting messed up in here. Oh, I'm messing up. Some of y'all might have to run out of here. You're going to run out of here. But you in the church and you trying to be saved, but you in heat. You walking like this. I can't get, don't leave the church. Don't leave. But you know what I'm talking about. Just, oh man. You just in it. I'm preaching, ain't I? I am preaching. Because you in heat, you just got to get you some. Well, they got stuff out that'll help you with that. Y'all ain't gonna help me in it. Oh my God. Because one thing you should do, if you really love her, it'll keep. Man, I'm preaching up in here. If you love her, it'll keep. If you really love her, you'll respect her. And if you really love her, you don't want her to do anything that will potentially mess her up. Because you love her. That's what you told her. That's what you told her so you can get in her pants. You said, I love you. Baby, ain't nobody gonna love you the way I love you. Oh, baby, I love you. Give somebody a high five and say, he lying, he lying. Because if he loved you, he'll have a job. If he loved you, he'll make a place for you. Give somebody a high five and tell them, Pastor, talking about the crisis of the young black man. Am I preaching? And that's why it's so important. It's so important for me. I got to close. Oh, it's 12:15. It's so important for me to have young men like yourself. Brother Allen, it's so important for me to have young men here like yourself. And this young man here, Elijah. And this young man, Derek. They have young men here so they can hear me when I talk. And no, I'm not blowing sunshine. If we want to turn this city around, God help me. I'm so sick of all of these churches in Detroit, and the city is getting worse, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of seeing a church on every corner that you drive by, and the city going straight to hell. I just don't understand it. We're going to have to turn this around. We're going to have to shift some stuff. It's not enough for you to walk into church and praise the Lord and shout and lift up holy hands, and you go home and your son is a drug dealer and your daughter got 3 babies and you taking care of all of them. Give somebody another high five. Find somebody else and give them a high five and say, that's the pastor's burden today. It's the pastor's burden. I got a burden, it's on me. And I can't stop until I get it off of me. Because Peter is in prison. Y'all sit down. He's in prison, which means he's disconnected. He's disconnected from reality. It's a wonder how, as broke as you are, you can always find money for weed. Were you thinking the same thing? We're going to have a town council. We're going to have to get Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick in on this one right here. Mr. Mayor, how in the world all these broke Negroes is always high? If you broke, you shouldn't be high all the time. He's in prison. He's disconnected. %70 of every black household in America is headed by a single parent. Did I say 70%? That means for every 10 black households, 7 of them. Line up 10 in one block. 7 of them is headed by a single parent. And predominantly, not all, but predominantly, it's the woman. He's in prison. Have you ever seen an old fool? I saw an old fool I saw an old fool in the gas station one day. He had an earring in both ears. He had a Pele jacket on and he was sagging. When he pulled up in the gas station, the music was so loud that I was vibrating. When he jumped out of the vehicle, put gas in his car, I was shocked. It was an old man, had all gray, and that's an old fool. Trying to be a young fool. But did you know that every old fool started off as a young fool? That's why we got to target our children. They want the pastors to go up to schools in our community. The principals want us to come. And the first thing he wants us to do is just go up there, sit and observe. Don't wear your collar.